Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Amit Kaushik, Chief Marketing Officer, Altec Group. I welcome you all to our new Global Economy and Graphite Electrode Industry October 2023 Outlook and Beyond podcast. Let's look at Macro Outlook 2024. This report was published by Goldman Sachs Research, and what they say is that the hard part of the economy is over. The global economy has outperformed even the optimistic expectations in 2023. They say unemployment rate across all economies that produce high quality labor market data continued to edge down in 2022, 2023. This improvement is visible even in some key economies that have seen very low real GDP growth, such as the euro area. The positive surprises in the global economy, despite several unexpected negative shocks, are both short term and long term interest rates rose significantly further than implied by market pricing, partly due to better than expected growth data, but also partly due to more hawkish central bank reaction functions. There was a serious but brief bout of banking sector instability in US and Europe during the spring. The Middle East unrest, though there are security risks facing the world, so far has not had a major impact on oil prices, financial markets, or the real economy outside the Middle East. Let's talk about an interesting topic, which is the artificial intelligence. We all know this is a very important area these days, and in the future, it will be playing a very important role. So, generative AI has the potential to automate many work tasks and eventually boost global economic growth. AI will start having a measurable impact on the US GDP in 2027. Growth through AI in other economies around the world in the years that follow. AI could ultimately automate around 25% of labor tasks in advanced economies and 10 to 20% of work in emerging economies. Goldman Sachs also estimates a growth boost to GDP from AI of 0.4% in the US, 0.3% on average in other developed markets, 0.2% on average in advanced emerging markets by 2034. In other emerging markets, a smaller boost from AI given adoption will probably take longer and AI exposure will likely be lower. How much can AI improve productivity? In the baseline scenario, AI could increase US productivity growth by 1.5% annually, assuming widespread adoption over a 10-year period. They expect similar effects in other major developed markets. A somewhat smaller impact of 0.7 to 1.3% in most emerging economies, given their higher share of employment in sector and low AI exposure in agriculture and construction sector. AI effects on GDP will take time to emerge. Survey indicates a small impact from AI on activity and hiring needs in the next 1 to 3 years, a much larger impact in the next 3 to 10 years. Now let's change the subject. Let's discuss about Brent crude futures, which climbed nearly 2% to $81.5 per barrel as a financial market rebounded in hawkish Federal Reserve comments, but were still on track for a third consecutive weekly decline. Concerns about potential supply disruptions in the Middle East, coupled with uncertainties in US and Chinese demand, contributed to the weak downward pressure. Let's look at 63.5% iron ore content deliveries in Tianjin, which advanced to US dollar 130 per metric tons, the highest in over 7 months, amid expectations of robust demand and risks to supply. China would accelerate the issuance of bonds after accommodating an additional Chinese yuan 1 trillion in debt to target steel heavy infrastructure and manufacturing projects. Let's look at coal futures. Newcastle coal futures were near around $120 per metric ton, close to a 2.5 year low of 117 US dollar hit on November 1st, mainly due to an oversupply of the Chinese coal market, resulting from increased domestic production and substantial surge in coal imports. Let's have a look at LME prices for aluminium. Aluminium has since rebounded from the last 2 months low of US dollar 2176 as supply concerns prevailed across the outlook of muted demand. Top producer China halted the expansion of production capacity beyond the current limit of US 45 million tons as Beijing attempts to prevent the metal's oversupply and higher energy consumption from old and inefficient infrastructure. Copper futures fell to US dollar 3.6 per pound, retreating sharply from the 1 month high of US dollar 3.7, pressured by a rebound for the dollar, respite in inventories, and demand uncertainties for top customers. Lead LME lead decreased 138.7 US dollar per metric ton or 5.94% since the beginning of 2023. Let's look at zinc. LME zinc prices rose above US dollar 2600 in November, underpinned by expectations of decreased output. Narstar, one of the leading zinc producers, announced the temporary closure of two of its mines in the US at the end of October due to the impact of inflation. The shutdown followed halts of operations in Ireland and Portugal, further reduced an anticipated zinc production in 2024. Now let's look at ferroalloys in Indian market. So the price trends are Indian ferroalloy, ferrosilicon 70% price remains stable week on week with a marginal drop of Indian rupee 250 per metric tons week on week. As regular trading activities continued in the market, prices stayed stable, supported by sustained demand. For your reference, you may consider US dollar to Indian rupee exchange rate at 83.3%. Now, let's look at ferrosilicomanganese. So, the prices for Indian ferrosilicomanganese remained consistent with a slight decrease of Indian rupee 500 per metric ton week on week due to the decrease in inquiries from both the domestic and export markets as well as competitive offers in the market. Looking at the World Shipping Index, last month the index remained low but is seeing slight improvement now. Now, let's come to the World Steel demand, which was published by worldsteel.org, which projects the short term outlook for demand of crude steel. So, what they say is that steel demand is to grow by 1.8% in 2023, and in 2024, demand will see a further increase of 1.9%. China steel demand is forecasted to increase by 2%, but in 2024 it will remain the same as in 2023, which means it remains flat. Indian steel demand to grow strongly by 8.6% in 2023 and 7.7% in 2024. So China 2024 outlook, it remains uncertain depending on the policy directions to tackle the current economic difficulties. India growth in Indian construction sector is driven by government spending on infrastructure and recovery in private investment. Infrastructure investment will also support the capital goods sector growth. Healthy growth momentum will continue in automotive sector. United States, despite the resilience in the US economy to steep interest rate hikes, steel using sectors are feeling the impact, particularly affected in residential construction, which is expected to contract in 2023 and 2024. Now let's come to graphite electrode outlook. The graphite electrode is used in electric arc furnaces to melt steel scrap, and basically it is recycled steel. So the graphite electrode is used as a heating medium to melt steel scrap. The main raw material used for graphite electrode is needle coke. So, needle coke and graphite electrode prices are moving close to stable now, though the current demand side is still under pressure and expected to improve in 2024. So, that brings us to the end of our podcast today. Let us connect again next month with a fresh new podcast. Thank you very much.